live from the drama-free true crime destination. It's the time where every story finds its edge, every opinion lands with weight, and every moment leads here. This is the final word. And a good Friday evening, the first Friday after Thanksgiving. Welcome to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, and welcome to the final word. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. So good to have you all here this evening. And tonight, I've got a doozy for all of you. So if you've eaten, come on in, get yourself relaxed, get yourself prepared. If you haven't eaten, grab yourself a late night snack or whatever will fill you up, because it is now time for my opening statement on this Friday evening. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Court is adjourned all across the country, and the gavel still echoes. Tonight, we convene not to entertain, but to indict. Tonight, you will hear 7 stories. You'll be witness to 7 shadows. You'll be introduced to 7 forces conspiring against justice, dignity, and hope in our time. I call them the Sinister Seven. Each headline is not a mere news story. It is an indictment, a charge, if you will, against the conscience of this generation. Tonight, I will present the evidence, I will deliver the charges, and I will render a verdict. Above all else, I will remind us that even when darkness gathers, truth is not silent. Truth demands to be spoken. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final word. And we are going to get started with the first member of the Sinister Seven. And this one came down with a verdict watch today. That being Trinity Madison Pogue from the Georgia pageant queen child murder trial. This case had gathered national headlines, where a former pageant queen is accused in the tragic killing of Romeo Angeles, aka Jackson Drew, or JD. The trial has become a flashpoint for discussions of image, privilege, and accountability. Justice must pierce the crown. There is no title, no glamour, no legacy that can shield the truth. But as I was preparing to bring this story to you, I've got this update that turned this story into a verdict watch. A jury in Georgia had deliberated for 2 hours, 56 minutes, and 9 seconds in this case. So I'm going to bring that screen up to you now and prepare my side of it. And this is likely where you'll see the end result here, but I want to bring this to you first. A former Georgia pageant queen, actually, let's start here first. I'm going to take this down from the notes first, and then we're going to go right into what we need to go to. In the closing argument of this case, District Attorney Louis R. Bud Lamb argued that it's undisputed that little JD's death was from massive head trauma. He argued that the medical doctors testified the time frame between injury and JD's initial symptoms was very quick, and argued that Trinity Madison Pogue was the only person left with JD during the time frame. The defense's closing argument was delivered by W.T. Tim Gamble III. He urged the jury to focus on reasonable doubt. He argued that there was no evidence of a violent, massive force injury in Pogue's dorm room. He argued that Pogue was an immature teen in a relationship with a 23-year-old man and made comments about not liking JD, but no one testified they witnessed her caused harm to JD. And he also argued that JD's death was a tragedy and the defense and prosecutors didn't know what really happened. District Attorney Bud Lamb came back with the rebuttal argument, saying that JD didn't have any visible injuries when Pogue's roommates saw him around 10 p.m. on January 13th. He argued that only two possibilities for JD's injuries are accidental trauma or inflicted trauma, but accidental trauma is not a realistic explanation. Argued that Dr. Olek testified that a fall from a bed could not have caused the nature and extent of JD's injuries, and argued that Williams's testimony was credible and he had no reason to hurt his son. As I mentioned at the top, the jury deliberated for nearly 3 hours, 2 hours, 56 minutes, 9 seconds. The jury came back with this verdict.
News, we have a verdict out of the state of Georgia in the case against Trinity Pogue. You can see, Michael, 2 hours, 56 minutes. They had a question. Now we understand they have a verdict.
Yeah, we see that from time to time when juries have a question. It doesn't take too long after that for them to resolve any issues that they had. Again, Trinity Pogue charged with murder in the death of the son of her then boyfriend who had been staying at her dorm room. He had left her in the room with the baby. The baby ended up with some very serious injuries. So the supposition is that she caused those injuries, but of course the defense is claiming she did not, and perhaps they were caused by someone else or at some other time. Let's bring back in our guest still with us, criminal defense attorney Forrest Miller. Forrest, as I said, a lot of times you get these questions. This is a little quick, but a lot of times you get these questions, and then the jury sort of clarifies what's going on in there, and then they come out with a verdict.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it came so quickly after. We were waiting for maybe 20 more minutes. That's great. They got their stuff clarified. That was obviously holding them up from their verdict. They defined some things and they pulled the trigger. So I'm excited to see what the verdict is.
I was surprised it was that quick as well. And we do want to mention that is a live picture of the defendant. They're the judges. He just took the bench. We do not have any audio yet. We're waiting for the jury to get back in there. And I have to just comment on her demeanor. She's been a little bit like that. We see her now. I would be worried. I think 3 hours in, if it were me, I would be worried. Forrest, tell us what you think. And if we cut you off, it's only because they've started court.
Sure, understood. Yes, I think it's my opinion that when verdicts come quickly like this, that it's most often bad news. So her demeanor is appropriate. I think that she has some bad news coming down the pike right now.
Forrest, she didn't take the stand in her own defense. Do you think that was a mistake? I certainly do.
She can't really explain too much. They found the body in her room, and maybe to her personally, maybe she wants to hold that close and not really divulge the information that she has, and it's her prerogative. But I really don't think she could have talked her way out of this.
All right.
I think.
Mr. Foreperson, does the jury
Yep, we have audio. Let's go in.
All right, if you would pass that to my bailiff, please. All right, Ms. Pogue, if you would please stand. The verdict reads as follows as to each count. On count one, it says, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. On counts 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, the verdict reads, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of felony murder, 2 counts, aggravated battery, 2 counts, and cruelty to child in the 1st degree. Y'all can have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a tough week for you, I'm sure, and I know that you probably had a lot of places you would have rather been this week than here. I do want to thank you tremendously for your service. You have shown up, you've been on time, and you've paid thorough attention. You've taken in a lot of information this week, and you obviously, from the fact that you've deliberated over this, you've looked at this very closely. So with that, your county appreciates the work you've done, and you'll receive a stipend. It's just a token of the county's appreciation. You are free to leave for the term. You're also free to, you can certainly step back into the courtroom through the other door if you wish to, or hang around if you want to speak with the lawyers, but you don't have to. You don't have to talk to anybody. You're welcome to leave at this time if you prefer. If you do, turn in your badges on your way out, and make sure that your notes are in the jury room. And I really appreciate it. Y'all are free to go.
Trinity Pogue found not guilty on the top count of malice murder, but she was found guilty on 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated battery, and a sole count of cruelty to child in the 1st degree. So with that being said and done,
So welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcox.
And I'm Michael Ayala. We are bringing you live coverage in the sentencing phase of the pageant queen child murder trial going on in Georgia. In a split verdict, the jury found her not guilty of malice murder or intentional murder, but guilty on the remaining 5 counts, including felony murder.
Let's get you back into court now. The judge is ready to issue a sentence. Very short arguments by counsel. He's going to tell us what his decision is.
All right, Ms. Pogue, if you'll stand up, please. I don't do a lot of speaking when I'm passing the sentence. I've heard the case, and I've, considered the tragedy on the left side, on my left side, and on the right side, and there's a lot of tragedy to go around here. The whole time that I'm hearing a case, I think about what the appropriate sentence would be. And this conduct all led, in my opinion, to the offense of felony murder. Even the charge that, would have merged with count 3, but does not because count 3 is vacated by count 2. That's a lot of technical jargon. But the bottom line is you're going to receive a sentence of life in prison, which is the appropriate sentence for the conduct that you have been convicted of. And that is going to essentially be the sentence that the court passes in this case. You will be sent on, so on count 2, I sentenced the defendant to serve life in prison. And on count 6, I sentenced the defendant to serve 20 years in the state penitentiary. Those sentences will run concurrent. I do wish to advise you, Ms. Pogue, that you have 30 days to appeal. You also have 4 years within which you could seek habeas corpus. I hope this can bring some closure to the family. It's just a complete tragedy. And I hope that you can, in your older days, have some sort of life after serving this sentence. And life while you're in prison. I guess you just have to make the best of it. But that's the sentence of the court. I wish everybody the best.
sentenced to, and an additional 20-year child. All those sentences will run concurrently. Now, sure, murder. 2 felony count. The judges said murder had been proven. The crown is stripped, the verdict delivered, and a sentence pronounced. Trinity Madison Pogue, the former beauty queen of Donaldson's fall from grace, is now complete. The transformation from beauty queen to convicted felon. The gavel has spoken the final word. This case is closed, and I've got but 2 words for you. Justice served. Next up in our Sinister Seven this evening is the ongoing trial of Massachusetts versus Brian Walsh. The disappearance of Anna Walsh. That case is still ongoing. And they are currently in the, what is it now, the 4th or 5th day of this trial? Let's see. Yeah, this is day 5 of that trial, where a Massachusetts man is standing trial on charges he murdered his wife, whose body has never been found. 50-year-old Brian Walsh is charged with the first-degree murder in the presumed death of his wife, Anna Walsh, age 39. On November 18th, moments before jury selection began the trial, Brian Walsh pleaded guilty to 2 charges in connection with Anna's disappearance: misleading a police officer and conveyance of a human body. Sentencing on those charges will be scheduled after the murder trial concludes. A jury was selected on November 20th, and opening statements began December 1st. Prosecutors say Brian murdered his wife on January 1st, 2023, then spent several days trying to conceal the crime before she was ultimately reported missing by her employer on January 4th. Surveillance video allegedly shows Brian purchasing $450 in cleaning supplies and tarps on January 2nd. In court documents, investigators said that Anna was having an affair before her death and had told a friend she planned to leave her husband. Investigators say Brian's internet search history included things like how long before a body starts to smell, and dismemberment and best ways to dispose of a body. At the time of Anna's presumed murder, Brian was on house arrest awaiting sentencing for a separate fraud case that involved the sale of fake Andy Warhol paintings. Trooper Michael Proctor, former Massachusetts police trooper Michael Proctor, was a key investigator in Anna's disappearance. Walsh's attorneys fought to have access to records from Proctor's other cases, including those of Karen Reed and Sandra Birchmore, ahead of his murder trial. Proctor was fired from his job for sending inappropriate messages about Karen Reed on his phone, as well as drinking on the job. In the latest updates from the trial, Trooper Connor Keefe, a Massachusetts State Police digital forensic examiner, was brought back to the stand. He testified to text messages between Brian and Anna. On Christmas Day, December 25th, 2022 at 11:32 a.m., hello, and Thomas asked if you are coming today. Anna responded on that same day, my flight got canceled driving up. January 2nd through 4th, 2023, multiple undelivered texts from Brian included, hello, Thomas found the phone. Hello, where are you? I'm worried. Please call. And I'm calling Jeff now. Back to December 25th of 2022 at 11:32 a.m. Search for Christmas Day plane crash and multiple searches for Anna Walsh found dead. December 30th, extensive searches for wine and champagne from 7 to 7:15 p.m. and a search for the movie I'm Good. December 31st, 2022, 11:17 p.m. Search for Nightshade, the restaurant. Brian made a reservation for Anna and himself on New Year's Day. Searches for Kids Playhouse, how to start a charity, how to start a church through 501c3 nonprofit. Anna's flight was canceled on December 25th. She drove to Cohasset. There were 3 phone calls between Brian and Anna after the flight cancellation. December 25th, Anna sent a photo of a Porsche and 8 Zillow property listings to Brian. No communications between Anna and William Fastow found on an iPhone Mini 13. Trooper Heather Sutherland of the Massachusetts State Police crime scene technician retired. She testified that photographed dumpster and trash compactor on Paradise Road, collected and processed multiple tools, snips, hacksaw, hammer, packing tape, hatchet, craftsman shears, and a measuring cup. And then Dr. Richard Atkinson, a forensic pathologist, examined items from the trash facility and identified pieces of carpet with reddish-brown stains. So we have a Massachusetts husband accused in the chilling disappearance and alleged murder of his wife, and the case has gripped the public with its blend of domestic betrayal, forensic evidence, and unanswered questions. So, we're still in the process of getting those answers. Behind the facade of family lies the shadow of betrayal, and the truth must speak louder than silence. The case will continue on Monday. Next up, the third of our Sinister Seven, Derek Chauvin. I think you all remember him. This is the former Minneapolis police officer who was convicted along with a few others in the death of George Floyd back in 2020. Chauvin now is seeking a new trial. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is seeking a new trial in the murder of George Floyd. Chauvin has served 5 years of his 22-and-a-half-year sentence. Chauvin was convicted of murder charges. Chauvin and officers Alexander Kuhn, Thomas Lane, and Tao Thao were found guilty on federal charges of violating Floyd's rights. In 2021, Judge Peter Cahill sentenced Chauvin to more than the recommended 12.5 years because Chauvin occupied a position of authority as a police officer and because he demonstrated particular cruelty in the killing. His attorney filed court documents asking that 3 criminal convictions be vacated. The filing accuses prosecutors of misconduct and argues that false testimony from expert witnesses deprived Chauvin of a fair trial. This is not the first time Chauvin has sought to overturn the verdict. Chauvin's attorney previously appealed the verdict and asked for the charges to be removed because of the publicity surrounding the case. And because of procedural errors that affected the possibility of a fair trial, one juror in the case participated in a civil rights gathering commemorating Martin Luther King Jr. and did not disclose that participation until after Chauvin's trial had concluded. An appeals court found the lower court was appropriately cautious and thorough in hearing the case and handling the jury despite media attention. Separately, Chauvin was sentenced in federal court in 2022 to 252 months plus time served for violating the civil rights of Floyd and a then 14-year-old victim. The Justice Department held that Chauvin used unreasonable force against Floyd and against the other victim. That should be very memorable. Remember the knee on the neck? Chauvin's appeal reopens wounds for a nation still grappling with questions of systemic injustice, accountability, and the enduring legacy of that tragic day. My thinking, no retrial can erase the truth, and the knee on the neck remains a symbol of injustice. Derek Chauvin is going to need a lot of luck, a lot of prayer, and a lot of grace from a judge that will allow Chauvin to get a new trial. If not, then sorry about your luck, buddy. Next up, the case of Kentucky versus Sean Mickey Steins. This is regarding the murder of Judge Kevin Mullins. As you remember, the former sheriff of Letcher County, Kentucky, now stands indicted for the killing of Judge Kevin Mullins. The latest headline confirms that the court has denied a motion to dismiss the indictment, ensuring that the case proceeds toward trial. Just because you're in a position of authority doesn't mean you go breaking the law. A Kentucky judge has denied a motion to dismiss the indictment accused of fatally shooting District Judge Kevin Mullins in September 2024. In a separate ruling, the judge granted Stein's motion for a bond hearing, but denied his request to introduce portions of a sealed psychological evaluation as evidence. That's according to court documents. Stein's defense previously indicated he plans to present defenses of extreme emotional disturbance and insanity at trial. He remains in custody on charges of murder, which carries the possibility of the death penalty. Steins allegedly shot and killed District Judge Kevin Mullins on September 19, 2024, in the judge's chambers. The shooting was captured on video, which was played during Steins' preliminary hearing and shown to the grand jury. The defense argued that prosecutors presented false and misleading testimony to the grand jury, specifically regarding Steins' mental state and his connection to a federal civil lawsuit involving former Deputy Ben Fields, according to those documents. The defendant alleges that at the November 21st, 2024 grand jury meeting, the prosecutor elicited false and misleading testimony which influenced the jury to return the murder indictment, the order read. The defense claimed this testimony was misleading because medical records showed Steins had been diagnosed with an acute stress reaction the day before the shooting. Jail records also documented observations of active psychosis during suicide risk assessments conducted after his arrest. The video footage clearly serves as a reasonable ground for belief the defendant intended to cause the death when he shot and killed Judge Mullins, the judge wrote. The defense also argued that Detective Stamper falsely testified that Judge Mullins had no connection to the Ben Fields civil lawsuit. The lawsuit involves allegations of improper sexual relationships with court participants that occurred in Mullins' chambers, according to the motion. The judge ruled that the Commonwealth satisfied its burden of presenting evidence for the probable cause, and any alleged omissions or misrepresentations would not have changed the grand jury's decision to indict. My thought? Maybe it had something to do with the videotape. That's just my guess. This clash of lawman turned defendant against the very institution he once served underscores the fragility of trust and authority. When guardians of the law become its violators, ladies and gentlemen, justice must speak louder than the badge. More updates on this case as they come in, and once we get down to a trial and once we get down to trial, we'll find out exactly what goes down and what the fate of Sean Mickey Steins will be. Next up, the next member of our Sinister Six is Luigi Mangione. Familiar name? It should be. He's accused of murdering the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson. A recent hearing has shed new light on the circumstances of his arrest, intensifying scrutiny on both the investigation and the corporate power dynamics surrounding the case. Minutes after police approached Luigi Mangione in a Pennsylvania McDonald's, he told an officer he didn't want to talk, according to a video and testimony at a court hearing Thursday for the man charged with killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione emerged earlier in this week's hearing. Thursday's proceedings shed new light on the lead up to and aftermath of his December 9th, 2024 arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Mangione's lawyers are trying to preclude key evidence from being presented at his state murder trial, including his initial statements to police and a gun and diary they say found in his backpack. On the hearing's fourth day, the 27-year-old Mangione appeared to follow the proceedings intently, at times leaning over the defense table to scrutinize papers or take notes. He briefly looked down as the Altoona police officer, Tyler Fry, was about to ask about a strip search of Mangione after his arrest. Under department's policy, that search wasn't recorded. It happened after police were told that someone at the McDonald's resembled the much-publicized suspect in Thompson's killing. But Fry and Officer Joseph Detweiler initially approached Mangione with a low-key tone, saying only that someone had said he looked suspicious. Asked for his ID, he gave a phony New Jersey driver's license with a fake name, according to prosecutors. Moments later, after frisking Mangione, Detweiler stepped away to communicate with dispatchers about the license, leaving the rookie Fry by Mangione's table to talk with him. Fry asked him what's going on and what had brought him to Altoona. "I don't know what you guys are up to," Mangione answered, and he inquired what was afoot. After repeating the claim that someone was suspicious of Mangione, Fry asked, "You don't want to talk to me or anything?" Mangione indicated that he didn't. Still, during the roughly 20 minutes before Mangione was told that he had a right to remain silent, he answered other questions asked by officers and also posed a few of his own. Can I ask why there's so many cops here? He asked shortly before being informed he was being arrested on a forgery charge related to his false ID. By that point, roughly a dozen officers had converged on the restaurant, and Mangione had been told he was being investigated and had been handcuffed. So what's at stake? Mangione has pleaded not guilty to state and federal murder charges. Before any trials get scheduled, his lawyers are trying to prevent the eventual jurors from hearing about his alleged statements to law officers and items, including a gun and a notebook they allegedly seized from his backpack. The evidence is key to the prosecutor's case. They say that the 9mm handgun matches the firearm used in the killing. That writings in the notebook laid out Mangione's disdain for health insurers and ideas about killing a CEO at an investor conference, and that gave police the same fake name that the alleged gunman used at a New York hostel days before the shooting. Thursday's hearing collides with the anniversary of the killing, which United Healthcare marked by lowering the flags at its campuses in Minnetonka and Eden Prairie, Minnesota, and encouraging at half staff and encouraging employees to engage in volunteering. The 50-year-old Thompson was shot from behind as he walked to an investor conference. He became United Healthcare CEO in 2021 and had worked within parent United Health Group for 20 years. The hearing, which started this past Monday and could extend into next week, applies only to the state case, but it is giving the public an extensive preview of some testimony, video, 911 audio, and other records relevant to both cases. After encountering Mangione, Detweiler and Fry tried to play it cool by intimating that they were simply responding to a loitering complaint and chatting about his steak sandwich. Still, they patted Mangione down, pushed his backpack away from him, and summoned more officers. About 15 minutes in, an officer warned him that he was being investigated and would be arrested if he repeated what they had determined was a fake name. After Mangione gave his real one, he was read his rights, handcuffed, frisked again, and ultimately arrested on a forgery charge related to his fake ID. Mangione's lawyers argued that his statements shouldn't be allowed as trial evidence because officers started questioning him before reading his rights. They say the contents of his backpack should be excluded because the police didn't get a warrant before searching it. Manhattan prosecutors haven't yet detailed their arguments for allowing the disputed evidence. Federal prosecutors have maintained that the backpack was justified to ensure there was nothing dangerous inside, and that Mangione's statements to officers were voluntary and made before he was under arrest. Many criminal cases see disputes over evidence and the complicated legal standards governing police searches and interactions with potential suspects. So we still have Luigi Mangione on the hook on both state and federal charges, and they're dealing with the state's case first. Just know this, ladies and gentlemen: when ambition turns lethal, the corridors of power become crime scenes, and justice must not be bought. And now we go from state charges in one end to federal charges on another. The next member of our Sinister Six is Dr. Salvador Plasencia. This is the doctor who sold ketamine to Friends actor Matthew Perry. And this one goes to a sentencing. A doctor who pleaded guilty to selling ketamine to Matthew Perry in the weeks before the Friends star's overdose death was sentenced. Judge Sherilyn Peace Garnett handed down a sentence of two plus years of probation to 44-year-old Dr. Salvador Plasencia in a federal courtroom in Los Angeles. The judge emphasized that Plasencia didn't provide the ketamine that killed Perry, but told him, "You and others helped Mr. Perry on the road to such an ending by continuing to feed his ketamine addiction. You exploited Mr. Perry's addiction for your own profit," she said. Plasencia was led from the courtroom in handcuffs as his mother cried loudly in the audience. He might have arranged a date to surrender, but his lawyers said he was prepared to do it today. Perry's mother and two half-sisters gave tearful victim impact statements before sentencing. "The world mourns my brother," Madeline Morrison said. "He was everyone's favorite friend." "My brother's death turned my world upside down," Morrison said, crying. "It punched a crater in my life. His absence is everywhere." Plasencia was the first to be sentenced of the 5 defendants who have pled guilty in connection with Perry's death at age 54 in 2023. The doctor admitted to taking advantage of Perry, knowing he was a struggling addict. Plasencia texted another doctor that Perry was a moron who could be exploited for money, according to court filings. Prosecutors asked for 3 years in prison, while the defense sought just a day plus probation. Perry's mother talked about the things he overcame in life and the strength he showed. "I used to think he couldn't die," Suzanne Perry said, as her husband, Dateline journalist Keith Morrison, stood at the podium with her. "You called him a moron," she said. "There was nothing moronic about that man. He was even a successful drug addict." She spoke eloquently and apologized for rambling before getting tearful at the end, saying, "This was a bad thing you did," as she cried. Plasencia also spoke before the sentencing, breaking into tears as he imagined the day his now 2-year-old son, "About the time I didn't protect another mother's son. It hurts me so much. I can't believe I'm here." He apologized directly to Perry's family. "I should have protected him." Perry had been taking the surgical anesthetic ketamine legally as a treatment for depression. But when his regular doctor wouldn't provide it in the amounts he wanted, he turned to Plasencia, who admitted to illegally selling to Perry and knowing he was a struggling addict. Plasencia's lawyers tried to give a sympathetic portrait of him as a man who rose out of poverty to become a doctor beloved by his patients, some of whom provided testimonials about him for the court. The attorneys called his selling to Perry reckless and the biggest mistake of his life. Plasencia pleaded guilty in July to 4 counts of distribution of ketamine. Prosecutors agreed to drop 5 different counts. The agreement came with no sentencing guarantees, and legally Garnett can give him up to 40 years. The other 4 defendants who reached deals to plead guilty will be sentenced at their own hearings in the coming months. In regard to Matthew Perry, he passed away at age 54 in 2023 after struggling with addiction for years, dating back to his time on Friends, when he became one of the biggest stars of his generation as Chandler Bing. He starred on that show alongside Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer for 10 seasons from 1994 to 2004 on NBC's mega hit. Who knows what would have been? When healers become dealers, the oath of care collapses, and justice must restore trust in medicine. I'm gonna let you be the judge as to whether that end result was justice served. In the meantime, Salvador Placencia is number 6 in our Sinister Seven, and that brings me to number 7. I'm going to introduce to some and reintroduce to others the one, the only Sarah Boone. And as I introduce to some and reintroduce her to others, I introduce and reintroduced her with a ticking clock. Sarah Boone is growing frustrated behind bars as she says she has yet to hear from her appellate attorney, even as time runs out for her appeal to be filed for Jorge Torres Jr., who was zipped into a suitcase and beaten while the couple was drinking and playing a game of hide and seek in February of 2020. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in December 2024. In the nearly 6 years since Torres' death and her arrest, Boone has gone through a dozen attorneys. 12. 9 of those attorneys represented Boone for her initial criminal case. Since then, she has managed to go through an additional 4 attorneys despite having no court hearings. On November 17, 2025, Boone sent a handwritten motion to the court asking to be included in and added to the certificate of service by all parties to receive important information regarding her appeal. Boone wrote that she does not know who her present attorney is or the status of her appeal. Boone's attorney, as of November 4th, 2025, is David Maldonado. Maldonado became her 13th attorney after her 12th attorney, Rodrigo Coruso, accepted a new job, forcing his withdrawal. Her 11th attorney, Joshua Adams, withdrew from the case after he stopped practicing appellate work. Her 10th attorney, appointed immediately after her sentencing, withdrew days later without explanation. As for the status of Boone's appeal, time is running out for her attorney to file an initial brief outlining why her case should be reopened. A motion for extension of time was granted in August, but the order notes no further extensions will be granted absent extenuating circumstances. That order required the brief to be served within 60 days of the August 29th order. Wow. So as we go back, Sarah Boone, already convicted in the shocking murder of her boyfriend, remains entangled in appeals. Now on her 13th attorney, she has sent mail to the court as the clock ticks down her appeal window. The revolving door of counsel underscores both the gravity of her conviction and the desperation of her defense. Bottom line, no suitcase can contain the truth, and justice must not be delayed by endless appeals. I said endless appeals, but she hasn't even gotten this one through yet. Either way, Sarah Boone, Salvador Placencia, Luigi Mangione, Sean Mickey Steins, Derek Chauvin, Brian Walsh, and Tiffany Madison Pogue. They are the Sinister Seven. And I am going to, now that you've been introduced to those seven, I am going to wrap this up quickly for the evening with my closing argument. Seven names, seven headlines, seven wounds carved into the body of justice. From Georgia's pageant queen to Florida's suitcase killer. From the betrayal of family to the corruption of authority. From ambition turned lethal to healers who became dealers. Each case is a reminder that evil does not wear one face. It hides behind crowns, badges, titles, and even oaths of care. Together, these cases form not just a docket, but a mirror. They reflect the fragility of trust, the danger of unchecked power, and of course, the cost of silence. They remind us that justice is not routine. It's not inevitable. It's not guaranteed. It must be demanded, defended, and declared. Justice delayed is dignity denied. Justice denied is hope destroyed. And justice demanded is truth restored. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the final word. I want to thank you all for joining me for this edition of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Let me see who we got in the chat real quick before I roll out of here. Who's this? Dr. Pepper Princess 91. Hello, and how are you? Thanks for chiming in. Let me go ahead and let her know that I want to thank for chiming in. There we go. No one can say that I don't answer my chats back. All right. Anyway, once again, thanks for joining me here tonight. Let's do this again come next week. Maybe I'll end up with another Sinister Seven. We'll see how that plays out. Until then, you know where you are already. Ready? In case you forgot, I'll give you a quick reminder. You're at the home for true crime news without the drama, where your opinions matter, lively debates are encouraged, your voice is heard, and above all else, justice is served. And we do this with no gimmicks, no drama, and absolutely no BS. This is Bethea'S Byte. And it's reloaded. See you next time. Thank you all for joining me here at the Drama-Free True Crime Destination. Be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and get your coverage of true crime news with no gimmicks, no drama, and no BS. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.